Hello, my name is Juan Pablo Urcad, and I am a professor in the Computer Science Department at the University of Iowa and principal investigator for the StoryCarnival project. In this video, I'm going to tell you more about StoryCarnival, which is a 3Cs technology designed for preschool children. In other words, a technology that's designed specifically to support communication, creativity, and connections with the physical and social environment for preschool kids. If you have not seen the video about 3Cs technology, I recommend that you do before watching this one. But I wanted to tell you more about the motivation behind StoryCarnival and its components during this video. So first, a little bit about our motivation. So as I mentioned in the video about 3Cs technologies, we had some concerns about the direction of technologies for young children, and we thought of the need of making alternatives and designing alternative approaches to technologies for children. So with StoryCarnival, we try to do such a thing, and we wanted to specifically promote the 3Cs, like I mentioned before: creativity, communication, and a connection with the physical and social environment. Now, in doing this, we wanted to make sure that we would design a technology that children could benefit from. So we decided to focus our efforts on helping children develop a skill that is often lacking in preschool children, but it's at a critical stage of development in those ages. And the skill that we found that is very important and is often not a focus of efforts in technologies for preschool children is executive function skills. So what are these executive function skills? They are skills to support goal-oriented behavior. They involve things like attention control, information processing, cognitive flexibility, setting goals. So think about things like self-regulation, so knowing how to behave differently in different situations, the ability to plan, the ability to pay attention to things that matter and not pay attention to things that might be distracting from a task. So all those things are part of executive functions, and you won't be surprised if I tell you that they have a significant impact on how kids do academically during all their schooling, all the way up to college, but certainly also in elementary school. And they tend to have just general positive effect on life outcomes. But a lot of children in the US, when they arrive in kindergarten, they often lack the skills. And ages 3 to 4 are a critical time for development of the skills. So we thought, well, this is something, an area that seems promising because it can be high impact, yet there's very little attention being paid to it in the technology space. So then what we did is we looked at, well, what are the interventions or the activities that have the most evidence behind them as to improving this executive function skills in preschool children. So the one type of activity that we identified that has a significant amount of empirical evidence behind it is an approach to early childhood education called Tools of the Mind. And the folks who have developed Tools of the Mind have a book, they have videos, they have several publications about it, and also other independent researchers have run pretty large studies testing the impact of Tools of the Mind, consistently finding that it helps children develop executive function skills, and in some cases going beyond that to look into the positive impact that this approach has in the early elementary school years. The main challenge with the approach, and the reason why you don't see it everywhere, is that it does require some amount of training of teachers that it might be difficult to achieve for a lot of schools, right? And I think this is the case with a lot of interventions that are developed and for which we have evidence, but the training aspect can be a barrier. So what we want to do with technology is to see if we can lower some of those barriers and try to make some of these activities a little more accessible by providing a little bit of support with technology to help get there. So StoryCarnival is a technology that we designed to exactly get over those barriers with a set of activities inspired by the Tools of the Mind approach to early childhood education, in particular focusing on how they support play, children's play. And what the play within Tools of the Mind is it's a Vygotskian inspired play that involves role play by groups of children where essentially they play characters in some story setting that they all know about, and they make use of non-electronic props like blocks or boxes or things like that to stand for any object in the story, and they also make use of space and imaginary places even if there's nothing there. And they negotiate and plan how they're going to play together. I don't want to get into the reasons why it works, but it does work in helping develop these executive function skills. So in developing StoryCarnival, our approach was to go to a preschool and do our best, after studying carefully how Tools on the Mind works, do our best to implement this kind of play and identify where the main barriers were, and then put in technology to help lower those barriers. So we have 3 different items that help get over these barriers, and they're the 3 components of StoryCarnival. The first one is interactive stories to motivate play. One thing that surprises is that for young children in this day and age, perhaps in part due to all the streaming services that parents get, there's very few stories that they all know well. And that's a bit of a problem because they don't have knowledge of sets of characters and context to play together. In addition to that, when we looked at children's books for that age, they typically have one main character, maybe 2, but it's really difficult to find books that have multiple characters that have some level of importance in the stories. And that makes it difficult for, say, groups of 4 to 6 children to play together, each pretending to be a character. So what we had to do was we made our own stories to support the kind of play that Tools of the Mind aims to support. We were inspired by their approach. And what we do is every one of our stories has 4 characters of about equal importance. They have a clear role, and they all work together and help each other out in the story. And in the story, we typically present some sort of challenge, and we don't complete the story. We let the children resolve it. So that's the idea there, is to try to help children be creative and come up with their own ideas for how to resolve the challenge in the story with the characters that are presented. We also have in StoryCarnival, so we have some stories that are pre-made. We also have stories that are Mad Lib style, so basically they follow a template. And you or the children can select which setting the story is going to be in, which characters are going to be in it. So for example, what vehicles they use, what food they eat. So in that way, you can generate many different stories from one general template and give some variety. The second component of StoryCarnival is the Play Planner, and the Play Planner helps children plan how they're going to play together after they experience the story. And what it does is it presents the characters in the story, and then children can be reminded of the role of each character in the story, and then say which one they're going to play and select it. And it can be done in a way that all the other children playing can be aware, right? I forgot to mention, for the stories themselves, and also this role selector or character selection portion, we have them on our web app, and you can use them on the web app. But if you prefer not to do any screen at all, we also provide you with printed versions. So you can just print them out and have an activity that's completely screen-free. And finally, we have one last component to the to StoryCarnival, which is our voice agent, which I will get over here. In our voice agent, we call it Minibird, and you can see Minibird right here. So it's a small box with the artwork for a little Iowa goldfinch, and it has a Bluetooth speaker inside, and we can make it talk to kids. So actually, the adults running the activity can control the speech of this agent. It doesn't actually listen itself, so the one who's listening is the adult running the story, the play. And we use Minibird to keep children engaged in play. So we notice if we didn't do that, sometimes children would get disengaged or would start doing something else. So we use Minibird to keep children engaged, and we found that it's particularly useful for keeping children who are a little bit on the shyer side participating in play and having play more of a role in these activities. One last thing I wanted to mention in this video is how StoryCarnival is different from other technologies that preschool children use. So the first thing is that it's a 3Cs technology, right? So the focus is on supporting creativity, communication with other children and with adults, and being connected to the physical environment and the social environment. And we definitely emphasize this during the majority of the time that children participate in a StoryCarnival activity after they plan play. Once they start playing, and that's the majority of the time in the activity, they're basically playing with each other, looking at each other, talking to each other, talking to the adult managing the activity, and playing mostly with non-electronic objects except for the voice agent, which is optional. You don't have to use it, but it can be useful in engaging children. And so in this case, right, one of the main differences is that focus of the activity is not on electronic devices, but it is instead on other children, on adults, on non-electronic objects. The neat thing, I think, with the voice agent too is that it does not demand visual attention, and that's one of the great things where it helps do this kind of activity while keeping children engaged with each other and with their physical environment. And finally, the other thing is, it's about who's in control, right? So we don't collect any data that's associated with specific people in StoryCarnival. We do collect data on the use, like what parts of the app get used, so we can better design it. But we don't know what specific users are doing. And the adults are in control, right? And the children are in control. It's not what happens in the activities is not dictated by technology. What the agent says is what the adult tells it in managing the session tells it to say. So it's a very different approach in contrast to a lot of technologies that are out there.